Welcome to Emotionally Evicted. We're your hosts, Mandy and Tami, sisters, survivors, and women who are reclaiming our lives one unapologetic story at a time. We're not therapists, just two women who've been through it, healed it, and aren't afraid to talk about it. This show is our eviction notice to chaos, codependency, and generational dysfunction, and your permission slip to reclaim peace, power, and your damn self.
This podcast is brought to you by Illumina Ops Solutions. We specialize in streamlining your systems, scaling your business, and getting you the hell out of the weeds. Because growth shouldn't feel this hard, and we've got the solutions you never saw coming. Visit illuminaops.com to start reclaiming your brilliance.
Welcome back to another episode of Emotionally Evicted. Welcome to season 2 of the podcast. Yay! Before we jump into further details of our healing, our boundaries, our people-pleasing trauma bonds, Tami and I decided that we want to start with more of a backstory of the world we grew up in, not necessarily super specific events, but the atmosphere, the emotional weather of our childhood, if you will.
Yeah. And we'll include a couple fun little tidbits from some stories we have.
Yes.
We got plenty of those.
I would say, excuse me, for a long time, I guess you can let me know if you agree with this. Not that we pretended to be polished and put together women, but we just have become these polished, put together women. And we don't want people to think that we've just magically figured life out, have figured it out-ish. But it wasn't because it magically worked out for us or anything like that. I mean, we've said before, not that our life has been the worst, but it certainly hasn't been gentle for us. And that is why we have figured out what we figured out. And that's why we're sharing all of this with you.
Yes. Yeah. We definitely didn't grow up in some crazy abusive household, but it definitely was not the Cleavers, So just laying out the foundation. And, we do get that a lot where people meet us and, we maybe tell a funny, what we consider funny, because that's how we've learned, or at least I've learned how to deal with stuff. Something from our childhood, and just the shock and awe on their face of you grew up in that. It's always you don't look like you dealt with that kind of thing. And, it's you can't judge a book by its cover ever. You don't know the path that people have walked on to get to where they're at. And I definitely feel like we are a success story for sure of having navigated some very troubling waters and coming out on the other side, like you said, for the most part, pretty polished and put together. We're still working on it, work in progress. So
absolutely. Because what was normal for us, deeply normal in our eyes, is, like you said, the kind of thing that makes most people's eyes widen. Just the instability, the chaos, just all of that growing up before our childhood even started is just, we want to share it because none of what we're going to talk
relatable.
Yes. And none of what we're going to talk about later will make sense unless you understand the environment that shaped us, the roles we stepped into, the survival strategies we thought were personality traits. And now we're realizing this is why we're this way. But that's why you do that deep personal work to figure out why you do the things that you do, so that you can uncover various things and become a better version of yourself.
100%. That's what life is all about.
Yes. So this is where our story begins, in a house that looked normal-ish from the outside, maybe. I don't know, but on the inside, everything, we didn't really have social media growing up because the internet started when we were I don't know.
We were,
I think I was 10,
as the
11,
kids
12.
say, we're from the 1900s, the late 1900s.
So it's not like we had a social media presence that everything looked great, but really what was presented on the outside was different than what was actually going on the inside. And what was just a normal Tuesday for us isn't actually just a normal Tuesday, is what we're coming to realize. And so we want to share that with you. So I think a good place to start would, maybe talk about the emotional weather, if you will. For me, if I think about our growing up, if I had to tie like a feeling to it and compare it to like weather, I'd say some days were sunny and other days when I reflect now, I think, oh my God, like that was a fucking nightmare. That was a tornado. At the time, I don't think I realized it though. I think I was just like, it's another Tuesday. It was no big deal.
Yeah. I don't think we realized the lack of consistency at the
Mm.
time because you only know what you know and you literally adapt to whatever, like as humans, you just literally adapt to whatever you need to do to survive. And yeah, like,
Much like the Midwest weather. That is the equivalent. The Midwest weather, that was our childhood. It's very inconsistent. The weather may say it's going to be 70, but it's actually going to be negative 40 and snowing its ass off. So prepare.
yeah, I would totally agree with that. As you were talking about kind of how it was, like looking back now, definitely not consistent. And every day you just kind of didn't know what to expect. But that was just the normal of not knowing, whereas our friends, probably for the most part, all, every day was like the same and consistent. And we were just like, I don't know, is dad going to go on a binger today? Are we going to have a DWI? Like, are the feds going to be popping through the door? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we going to find, needles and drugs in a car that we're driving?
Yeah.
We'll just see.
Stay
But
tuned.
I feel like you went to other people, like your friend's house more than I did. I mean, I feel like you had a lot more like friends and were more outgoing when we were growing up. So when you went to other people's homes, did you feel it was different or?
Yeah. I definitely saw that it was different. And like I was just talking to Mackenzie about this the other day, is like because dad and his second wife divorced when I hit middle school. And that's like a super critical time,
Yeah.
And I remember almost going to their houses and like being so observant of everything so that one, I could take care of the house at home. So I was like very observant on how like the mom like cleaned and did laundry and all the things because was like taking on that role at the time. And then also just like because I was hitting middle school and hitting puberty, like just how to be a woman and take care of myself and, like what you're supposed to do. So it was like, then I knew it was different, but I didn't feel like different or out of place. I don't know. Maybe it was just, of course, I was a kid, kind of hard to label that kind of stuff. Yeah, I was telling Mackenzie, I was like, I do remember being very observant on like how the moms would cook meals and stuff. And I don't know that that's necessarily normal at that age. That like an 11, 12-year-old's going to be like trying to learn recipes so that they can cook dinners. Like whenever I would go to my friends' houses, just like observing, basically how the mom dealt with things around the house, cooked and learning how to make meals because I was kind of taking on that role. I don't know that I necessarily noticed the lack of drama in the parents' lives compared to ours. It made me notice that like my friends' lives were easier. Like they just had all the things. Not that we didn't have what we needed, but I would definitely say, like, about middle school, high school, like, we didn't have, like, all the shit that, like, all of our friends had, you know? So, yeah, I guess noticing that, I don't know. I'm thinking about my one friend that I always spent the most time with, like, her mom kinda, like, took me under for sure and, like,
Mm.
played a little bit of that motherly role since our mom was absent.
Yeah. Non existent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about, my experience, and I just had Lori, rest in peace. And I mean, her home life was chaotic too. I mean, it's like I don't really have much comparison. So you'd say you probably slipped more into the motherly role in terms of us
Hmm.
and realize it.
Yeah. I Now I'm like thinking deeper about it. Like my one friend who I spent the most time with, she definitely like knew what my life was like. I feel like all my other friends, they had no idea. I didn't share any of that. So yeah, I guess I definitely was aware and embarrassed of how our life was, but I did not make it like, I was very good at masking it, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause, like, I can remember going to, like, some other friends' houses who were very well off and, had it all together, and just, you feel a little bit intimidated and, I don't know, embarrassed because you just want to fit in. You want
Mm,
to, like, say and do all the right things to fit in and, not having the best guidance. I can recall there were, like, things that like, situations where maybe I don't know how I'm trying to word this, like, things said or done that I wasn't aware that were, like, not normal, and you can see, like, the looks on people's faces, like and you're like, "Oh, that's not normal for everybody," and like, you mask really quickly, if that makes
yeah.
any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That does. That does make sense.
So, definitely, I think that has really in turn played a role in my adult life of being able, and that's probably why I'm so like aware of everything, is being able to like read a room and know like what the vibe is for one, and two, how I need to be presenting myself.
Yes, I feel that. Yeah, definitely. So, household pattern wise, I mean, for myself, when I think about things, I mean, when I reflect now, I realize that there were moments of chaos versus moments of calm. But growing up, like, I do remember specifically saying or thinking to myself, like, this shit is whack. And I never want my kids to grow up in something like this. And I want to do life differently. But at the same time, I also feel like I thought it was normal and I thought that I was going to have like a more difficult time having a different life. It's actually been super easy. I feel
Hmm.
like I work really hard at having a fucked up life. That's the route that I chose. Yeah, I mean, what about you? Do you feel like that or was it different?
Yeah, I would definitely say like there were moments of chaos and moments of calm. And for sure, like I feel like I would have had to really put effort into living that life of chaos in my adulthood.
Right. This just came to me. The moments that feel the most chaotic and that I'm now, I mean, I didn't realize it then, but when I reflect now, it was all the times that we moved.
Mm,
Because now that I look back, I feel like there was a part of me thinking, I just didn't know how to really voice it of like, I don't know anybody else in my life that moves this much. Like I
yeah.
have deep aversion to moving because
Right.
I mean, when we moved into this house, I calculated it and I think I was 27, 28 at the time, and I had moved about 25 times in my life at that point. And it's not like we moved cities, like we would just move homes. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't we everybody stayed at the same house growing up, but we
Yeah.
didn't. We moved so much for, whatever reasons. And yeah, that's like the moments that felt the most chaotic is the constantly on the go.
Yeah. I would say that tied with the different adults and adults, I mean like relationships that dad would have,
Mm,
changing
yeah.
that around, that was very chaotic.
Yes. We did have several different, like, maybe we should dive into that a little bit about the various adults that we had in our lives.
Yeah. Because our parents divorced. I was 7, you were 3, so, like, you don't even remember
I
all
just,
that.
yeah, just like little bits, maybe a handful of little memories that I have there. That's
Yeah.
it.
That was very chaotic. That was, yeah, not good at all. When they separated, Dad ended up meeting a woman that our mother worked with and got with her.
I have a memory. One of my memories that I have from that time is visiting our father in the hospital after he'd had the shit beaten out of him by I don't even know who. And I remember seeing him in the hospital attached to a bunch of things. That's a real memory, right? Like,
Yeah, that
happened.
actually
Okay.
happened. Yeah. The core memories I have related to our parents separating are just like the chaos of it. I know mom did not deal with that well. I remember her having me get on the phone and call this woman that dad was with and like say these nasty, terrible things to her. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. And then dad was awarded custody of both of us, but I think there was a little back and forth before that all finally was settled. I remember going to his new house and there was just like a lot of fighting with our parents about everything. Pretty sure mom called CPS on this woman because she had a baby at the time
Yeah.
and just trying to cause drama and problems. It was not an amicable separation at all, and, yeah, I just remember her making me on the phone and say these nasty, horrible things to her, and then dad got custody of us, and I almost feel like once he had custody of us, like, it wasn't very long, and we ended up moving to Arkansas, and
That's right.
I, like,
From
almost yeah, I just, like, don't really remember seeing mom after that, really. I know we saw her, like, 1 or 2 summers of our growing up, and I don't know, like, I don't have a relationship with her. I've tried over the years, but I don't know the reasoning. I've never asked, That has been, like, definitely an area for me growing up is, like, my mom. Especially having kids now, like, my mom, I don't feel like put in the effort to remain in our lives, even though, dad'll say, "Well, I did move you guys to another state." Okay, I get that, but I'm also like, we still had telephones,
That's true.
and, not only that, but I feel like the most line in the sand moment for me with mom was when I was in middle school and she sent a birthday card and spelled my name wrong, and I know that seems like so minor, but when it's like your own mother, yeah,
Yeah.
it was just kinda like, I don't know. But yeah, so he got with that woman. We moved to Arkansas and then they were together for a while, ended up separating. That's a whole 'nother story because she cheated on him and I am the one who told dad that she cheated on him. So there's that. And then he got with his 3rd wife and, they were together for a while until they divorced right before I started high school and we moved to Texas.
I
And
mean,
then
we moved several times in between there, like to various homes and towns and things. Oh yeah, Texas, man, that could be a whole episode itself. That
yeah,
was a hot mess.
yeah. I went to 3 different high schools.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And the third wife also became the fifth wife and is now not the wife.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
There's
there was
been
the fourth, the spawn of Satan.
yeah, the one he met in rehab, and we'll refer to her quite a bit because I feel like she was definitely, like, a pivotal
Oh,
relationship on so many
yes.
levels. I mean, from the very beginning to the end, because I think we've both said, because he met her in rehab and brought her home, and that was, like, a moment for both of us of just, like, not feeling chosen.
Yes, yes.
So
And I feel like anytime I'm talking to somebody and this story comes up, I always feel the need to say, rehab is not a dating service. I don't know why, but I feel like that's just so important to say because it's not. Like, but
Yeah.
okay, so let me just touch on some other adults that we had in our lives that I feel were important and maybe gave us some sense of normalcy. That would be like our grandmother, Mimi, and our grandfather, who we saw. I mean, we saw Mimi, what, like almost every summer growing up?
She was the goat. She like always made sure we had school clothes, like sent us all the makeup, like
Yeah.
and she definitely took on the role of like teaching us how to be a lady and act proper. And yeah, she was definitely the most positive female role model in my life, hands down.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes. So we had them. Then we had our dad's dad, our grandfather, and his wife, our grandmother. I mean, they were there quite a bit. I don't definitely not as much as Mimi, but I feel like we still saw them quite a bit. I feel like that relationship is what it is. I'm not going to dive into that at this moment. So, yeah, I mean, we had church. We, went to church. It had its own people involved in there. I feel like,
I had a lot of
you,
teachers that were very positive. I feel like
yeah,
looking back now, I think a lot of my teachers saw that maybe my home life wasn't good, even though I thought I was hiding that maybe. Because I remember like and I was like a good student. I made, honor roll, like minded my P's and Q's and all the possible activities I could be in, like president of most of them. Like I was rocking it. And I do
right.
remember getting a lot more special treatment from some teachers,
Yeah.
gifts or, letting some shit slide maybe. So I think looking back now, like, yeah, we did have a lot of good positive influences
Right.
as far as other adults. I don't know
Right.
if that was like your experience, like with teachers and stuff, because you were like a really good student. You were a better student than I was.
And actually, that could be a whole other episode because through my personal development work, I mean, I was, yes, national honor roll, regular honor roll, gifted and talented, all of that. I mean, because I'm a hella smart individual, but I've also realized that a lot of the way that I was is because of how I was being brought up. I do remember having some special teachers in my life. I will give a shout out to my third grade teacher, Mrs. Sanders. Well, I think her last name is different now. She was Miss Sanders at the time, and I had a very special relationship with her. I remember getting to go. Now, some people are going to think this is weird. I look back now and I think she was just really trying to give me an experience and, give me some extra love. But I got to go stay the night at her house one time. And, we did makeup and she taught me about cooking spaghetti noodles. And I shit you not, every time I cook spaghetti noodles, I think of her. So,
And
so it
that
was, it was that important to me. It definitely, I mean, obviously had an impact on me because I think of her when I cook spaghetti noodles now. And I mean, just in general. And yeah, so I mean, I feel like we had a mix of adults in our life, but our everyday adults in our lives,
were not consistent.
no, no, they were consistent with some not so great habits that they had. And it's so interesting to me now, thinking back. I remember us having the time. I mean, I remember us talking together about our life being chaotic or we should write a book someday. I remember us saying those things, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I think my subconscious knew how crazy life was. I don't think consciously I knew how crazy life was. And so I think when those things were coming out, it was my subconscious trying to say, like, hey, this is not normal. Hey, we need to have a different life. But I was just so used to it. And when I look back now, I'm like, wow, okay. And then when I see my son Hunter's parents, I mean, not that I'm out there judging, but I see some of them with similar habits sometimes. And I'm like, okay. And his friends have said things like, oh, parents don't like drink every day, or oh, your parents don't drink at all. And it's interesting how bizarre it is to them. And I reflect back when we were younger, like it wasn't normal to have a parent that drank every single night. Like drink as in like to get freaking blazed out of your mind drunk.
Yeah. Like we had a stack of like, what was it? Jim Beam. What did Dad drink? Crown?
Yeah, there was Crown, there was gin, there was Jack.
A lot of whiskey. I know. Hard liquor. He wasn't a
Yes.
beer drinker, really.
Mm-mm.
It was like hard, straight up liquor. That was like the alcoholism part. Bottles piled up in the corner of the kitchen. That's not normal.
Right.
You know,
Listening to her beg that he wants to get clean and sober and have a good life, and please go pour out all of the alcohol so that I don't drink. Yeah. I remember doing that a few times.
Well, going back to like what you said about like the subconscious versus conscious, like realizing, I think it's like just a survival mode because I feel like either people crumble or they just get through it. And I feel like, yeah, we recognized it was not normal and it was crazy, but I think we also recognized that crumbling and like having a meltdown about it was not going to get us to the life we wanted. So
Yeah.
I always say, like, you know, you can use your experiences as stepping stones to the life you want, or you can use it as a crutch to stay stuck.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, side note example of that, not just to give somebody maybe another example, Hunter has ADHD. And I know that there were many times in his growing up that I told him, this is not, even though it's kind of labeled as a disablement, I told him several times, this is not a crutch. You will not lean on this and use it as an excuse to be a certain way in life. Like, you have it and we're going to embrace it and we're going to, you know,
I think it's
use
like a
it.
superpower. Like, I feel like it has such a negative connotation to it. And it's like,
Right.
there's so many positives to it. But
Right.
anyways,
And he actually, I mean, he embraced it and, you know, uses it. I mean, he doesn't, you know, it's just interesting because, you know, going through all that, you know, meds and doctors and therapists and things, it's like we would just hear these stories of people, oh, well, I have ADHD. And I told him, I was like, no,
yeah.
we ain't doing that. Like your behavior, I mean, with ADHD, I mean, especially when he was younger, he had issues controlling himself. I mean, that's just what it is. But I'm like, you know, it's not going to be like an excuse for things. So that's my little side note. But back to us, and you were talking about like breaking down about things. Honestly, I mean, looking back, we only had each other. Now, growing up, I don't feel like we were as close as we are now. I mean, because I think it was just like normal sisterly beef. And plus, we were dealing with dealing with life, dealing with our own shit of just being kids growing up. And I think we just didn't know how to fully voice all of that like we do now. And I think that's why we've become so much closer now. But
And I feel like also because I had to take on more of the motherly role, I didn't play like more of a sister.
that is a good point. That is a good point. But I feel like almost like we didn't have, I don't like using the term safe space, but I feel like if we wanted to break down and have a total meltdown, who were we going to do that with?
Yeah.
There was nobody. With ourselves. I mean, so it's like, it's not like we had a parent that we could turn to and be like, I'm struggling with this. You know, I need something, which is, you know, of course, played out in other parts of our lives where we don't always voice what we need.
Yeah. I'm really bad about that.
We just very much, you know, pull up our bootstraps and move on, which is good and bad. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think all this has definitely, I think if we didn't have each other, I don't know how we would have turned out.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to think about it.
Right?
Yeah. It was, yeah. We definitely had a lot of very interesting moments that this podcast has really made me reflect back on some situations that happened that I think I've kind of pushed back in the back of my mind. Like, I know they happen, I know, but I've never actually like sat and looked at like, well, what did I feel about that? You know,
Yeah.
like I've always kind of looked at it as an outside, like someone outside of myself, like a out of body experience kind of thing. I don't know if you do that. Like when I talk about stuff, it's almost just like I'm telling a story about some random ass person's life.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that because I think about even now, and I think this needs to be said, it's not like we went through this, we've become these healed versions, and we're like on the other side of it. No, like we are, I think I said this to you yesterday, we are in the trenches still today. I mean, we still are dealing with it from our dad today. I mean, we won't go into specifics right now, but like it still hasn't stopped. There are still things that are happening that are triggering things that I thought that I had already worked through and that are coming back around that clearly I have to go through and work through again. And
Mhm.
yeah, sometimes I feel like I have this like out of body experience because I really reflect on like what we've gone through and really statistically how we should have ended up or how we could have ended up, I'll say, versus how we are. And it just amazes me every time. I mean, I'm so thankful that we're able to share all this with people. And I mean, I think we've said before, even if we just help one person recognize that you can go through all of this and come out on the other side or a different person, or you can always change your life.
Mhm. There's always room for improvement and, like, just start. Like, you don't need to, like, wait for, like, the perfect moment or anything. Just start today on trying to be a better person, working through, whatever issues you have. I mean, like Mandy said, we're constantly working through things, and we still constantly have triggers
Yes.
that
Yes.
bring that out. That'll be a
Right.
story for another day.
Right. Yes. But I mean, just know, I mean, like I said, we are in the trenches with you. We are going through it. We are not, up on some pedestal preaching down to you about, oh, this is no, no, no. Like we're in the thick of it. We're going through it just the same. I mean, some days I feel like are better than others. I feel like now that we're adults, we have the ability to distance ourselves from certain people and situations in our lives versus when we were kids. We were
Yeah.
kids. We didn't have anywhere else to go. We had to deal with it and we therefore made survival skills or various ways of dealing with things. I mean, there's several survivor skills that I have that still show up today, some good, some bad.
Yep, I got some that linger.
And then, several that I'm trying to unlearn.
Yeah. And we're going to be working through that in several episodes coming up. People pleasing, for one, is like a hot one we're going to be talking about. I feel like
So yeah, that's a big
uh,
one.
just like, yeah, coping as an adult after dealing with all that, recognizing those survival skills like Mandy was talking about, and how to either use those for good in your adult life or how to calm those. That's an area like this week I've been working on. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Right. Right. I mean, it's really just wild how much of our childhood, I mean, we survived on instinct and just I mean, we didn't have a language. We didn't have I don't think that we knew how to voice any of it then. And we didn't think that it was any sort of chaos. We didn't think that it was dysfunctional. We thought it was just normal life. And so now we're sharing the story, not for sympathy, but, and not to, I don't want anybody to think that we're trying to make somebody a villain here. I mean, we're just sharing the real life tales and it's going to have some negative and positive aspects to it. Um, but I mean, it's really about the boundaries, the healing, the patterns that we've broken, the relationships we stayed in too long. It all traces back to the environment that we were shaped in.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, 100%. We want people to recognize, like you said, we're not here to like make anybody feel a certain way about anything or talk down anybody. We want people to feel like they can relate on some level and just like, yeah, have that open conversation of, okay, how are we dealing with this today in real life in different scenarios? and how can we be better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least for myself, well, actually, I think this applies to everybody. A big part of healing, a big part of personal development is recognizing and naming out loud, like what felt normal and recognizing what wasn't normal, what wasn't healthy, what wasn't stable, because your foundation of how you grew up is really what shapes you as a person. And I really think if you do not address your foundation, your childhood, all of that, I personally just don't think that you're going to grow to the level that you could.
That's true. Yeah, because you learn those patterns and behaviors, and it's
Yeah.
good to understand why.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then reflect on how it shapes all of your choices now. I mean, like,
Hmm.
I can't wait for us to dive into the people pleasing stuff because that's, I know, huge for us. I know it's huge for a lot of people. It touches a lot of areas in lives, and it's really hard to heal that piece of you if you don't understand why you're doing it or where
Hmm.
it's from. That's the piece.
Yep, that's going to be hot buttons for myself for sure. Anybody who like knows me, like, yeah, that's probably an area I really struggle with. Bad.
I think a lot of people do. So I would say, for our listeners, if any of this resonates with you, if you grew up in a house where you were the emotional adult too early, or where you were constantly reading the room to stay safe, we just want you to know you're not alone. And nothing about who you became was an accident. It was adaptation. I think that's a good way to put it.
Hmm.
And this is like truly the beginning of our story, and we're excited to share more about it with you. I think next episode we may talk about the roles we slipped into, the helper, the fixer, the invisible one, the peacekeeper. Ooh, I feel like I'm big on trying to maintain the peace. So I think we can talk about how those roles followed us into adulthood long after, well, I can't say long after the chaos ended because it has not ended.
Right.
It's just different, yes. So yes. So our environment shaped us, our roles defined us, and then we have carried those roles everywhere we went. I think that'll be super relevant for a lot of people.
Yeah. This is just the beginning. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be diving deep into some real triggering topics.
If this resonated, please share with somebody else. Like, share, follow us, and join us on our next episode of Emotionally Evicted.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Emotionally Evicted. Thank you for being here. For more resources, stories, and ways to reclaim your life, head over to shereclaims.com and check out other episodes on emotionallyevicted.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.